Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Crickets to Cha-Chings podcast. I'm Julie Berninger, and we have a special guest for you today. I'm here with Cody McGuffie, who is founder and CEO of Everbee, which is one of my favorite tools. Welcome, Cody.
Julie, what's up? Super happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Well, we're glad to have you. So please, let's just start by having you tell everyone a little about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Cody McGuffie. I am, like you said, the founder and CEO of Everbee. We are an e-commerce platform that serves over 650,000 users across the world, helping them to create and grow and scale their online business. Specifically, today we're going to talk about Etsy sellers and how we serve a huge portion of our sellers are actually sell on Etsy. And we help them, like with product research was our main bread and butter that we've always done to understand what products to sell on Etsy, and then email marketing for Etsy sellers, and then also we're building some other cool things that we could talk about later on. But yeah, that's who I am from a business perspective. But aside from that, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I have two babies or two kids, 5 and 3, and I have one on the way in December. So I'm a full-time entrepreneur, dad, husband, whatever you call that. That's what I am.
You're busy. That's what I call that.
And happy and fulfilled.
Yes, busy and happy. So I love Everbee, and actually, I use Everbee all the time to prepare for this podcast. So, for example, I recorded an episode on products that nurses could sell. And it's super easy to type nurse into the search bar in Everbee and using that awesome Chrome extension, see what pulls up, filter on digital before doing it. And wow, it's just perfect. So thank you for making my podcasting life easier and for helping provide amazing product ideas to this community, because then I pass it on to them, and many of them use Everbee themselves. So I think it's so easy to use. So thank you so much for coming today.
It's my pleasure. Honestly, it's something that I personally nerd out on too. I like to use data and the numbers and to validate kind of where to go. It's one thing to have intuition, but it's another thing to like actually put numbers to that intuition, and then you could really lean into a niche or product category or something like that with like full confidence and actually like fully dedicate yourself to it because you don't feel like you're guessing anymore. It's like I will do this. The numbers say so, and my intuition says so. Combining those two things, then I just go and take the action and do it, and then pretty soon you have thousands of sales, and it's like you're building a dream business, which is it's a dream for the majority of people. I would hope that would be listening to this. It certainly was for me.
I feel the same way. And I think with us both sharing that we're both parents of young kids, we don't like our time wasted. So why wouldn't we use any extra help that a data tool could provide to help us get a little more accurate and closer to the eventual sale? So to me, this is a no-brainer. You should use a tool like Everbee. Everbee
Hey,
makes it super easy. So
thank you for
I
that.
love it.
Shameless
So
plugs, I know, but
shameless plugs, but it's the truth. And I mean, I'm beyond that. I used Everbee to prepare for the Halloween episode. I did one on gift baskets. I mean, there's just so many different ideas that can come from using a tool like Everbee.
totally.
So let's get started. People want to know, you have access to a lot of data about Etsy and what is working, what is not, and I'm sure you could see some trends on your end. So is there anything that you would only know in the position that you're in that you could share with our sellers today that could help improve their Etsy shops and help them make more sales?
Gosh, it's a great question. Big question too. Only I would know. Well, we look at a lot of data. We have, again, 650,000 sellers across the world, and they sell in every single niche possible on Etsy, right? We're talking about the high level categories, like let's say handmade to print on demand to printable to templates to digital products to mock-up shops, all this stuff. We get all this data, and then we get to kind of try to tell stories from it. And so the stories that we can kind of see are where the market is going is competition is continuing to rise. It always has and it always will. Uh, but does that equal saturation or not like the lack of ability to compete or win in the market? No, it doesn't. It's just we need to adapt. And the trends that we're seeing are probably need to be leaning into customization and personalization type of products, whether you're a digital seller or a print on demand seller or your handmade seller. A gift with somebody's name on it, with somebody's specific location on it, their specific city on it, whether it's a gift or it's a product, it will always convert higher and it's the easy way to differentiate yourself in a sea full of products and sellers. So if I were to answer that question, I would say probably personalization, customization is the game that I think is the market is moving towards. People are starting to expect this more.
And I totally agree. I recently attended a kid's birthday party from my daughter's best friend. And I went on Etsy a couple weeks before and we bought everything with this kid's name on it. So I'm like, she's just going to love it if it says her name, you know? We got a cute Halloween bracelet that said her name. And then we got some type of journal notebook so she could do like little writing and things, little diary, I guess, that said her name. And it was just perfect. So if you have not thought of how to personalize your products, do it. And to Cody's point, any type of product could be personalized. So just to give the audience an idea, let's say that you sell printables, you could add a personalized element to it where someone could, let's say it was a gift tag. Instead of doing a gift tag for someone to give their family, what about a gift tag for the PTA to give teachers, or
Hmm.
from the director of the nursing program to give the nurses, or something like that? Just think of how you could make it personalized and then allow the person to customize it on the back end. So we use Cordial for that, or Canva. I don't know, Cody, have you seen any differences on for personalization, which other software the person ends up using? Is that data that you track?
No, we don't track this data, but I could just say like we have hundreds and thousands of interviews at this point across our team. Definitely hundreds and hundreds of interviews with customers on my side of things on our podcast, or literally just like customer interviews. And it seems like the go-to tool mostly for Everbee customers is Canva typically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I haven't used Cordial a whole lot. I don't know of any other tools that are really, really popular. Yeah, I would say Canva is probably the majority.
And that makes me so happy because I've been doing this since 2019, even before when I was selling in my own shop. And Canva was an option, but it was not the dominant option. And then over time, Canva has just continued to kind of take over every category. It has definitely went for the personalization category with its templates. And now even the average end customer can understand it. Because before the business owners got it, but regular people were like, what? I have to download something.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
Cordial, it locks everything. It's super easy. It's easy for the person to understand. But like Canva has really stepped up and the average person seems to understand it. So I
Totally
think
agree.
that we're at a tipping point here where eventually
Is
Canva's just going to take over everything.
Yeah, and at this point, like you said, tipping point is because the majority of people, the end buyers that are buying product, they already have a Canva account too. So like they've already played with Canva multiple times. So
Mhm.
like they're already more familiar with it. So it's interesting to see them dominate.
Are there certain niches that you would see? Like, for example, one critique we get is that a lot of people think, well, I don't want to sell kids stuff, but kids stuff seems to be the dominant player sometimes in the printable space. In Are you seeing like, oh, it's kids? No, it's business to business. No, it's gifting. Like, what are the kind of the major niches that you're seeing when you do talk to these successful sellers?
Yeah, successful sellers. It's so interesting because I had a podcast today, actually, on our podcast, and they were talking about how they have a general store on Etsy. They sell to all kinds of niches in their store. And I'm like, oh, it's interesting. And she has 20,000 sales in like a year and 2 years of time, right? And I'm just like, wow, you obviously have figured out that you can have a big general store and then target specific niches inside of that store. It could be a Halloween, it could be seasonal mixed with like a niche, for example, like pickleball, pickleball people, right? People that play pickleball. But then design that specific thing for the seasonality of things. So Halloween and then Black Friday, or sorry, Christmas and then New Year's, and it's like you can make unlimited things for the pickleball person. So that's an example of a sub niche. But it's interesting. Then I have these other long-term, very stable businesses, sellers that they design usually for some sort of business professional, whether it's like real estate investors or real estate agents or somebody like that, insurance agents. These are the most stable businesses. They're not super high growth, but they're like the ones that are just like, oh yeah, I predictable money every time. People are willing to spend $50 for their digital template pack or something like this, just because it's a business expense now. It's a business minded purchase. Those are the ones that are more probably stable, but a little less high growth, I would say.
Yeah, and that makes tons of sense. So in our Gold City Ventures programs, we tend to teach people the former path because we find that it's the quickest learning path for them, and the quickest way to make sales is kind of to play the 12 months calendar year. But then
Yeah.
we'll see when someone goes on to make their second shop. Eventually, when they figure out what they're doing, they'll tend to pick like a super niche thing just for that second shop. But the first shop, people
Gotta
have the
learn
best. Yeah, they need to learn it. Like that's the fastest way to learn, because usually
100%.
if you start from the beginning, you're not going to probably pick the best niche, and you might not have the best design. So it
Yep.
kind of takes a little bit, and it's easier to create something for a holiday where the expectations are kind of lower than
Still agree. I totally agree.
something.
Like there's a learning curve aspect to this thing where you can just speed up that learning process and get through that phase as soon as possible. And then you're gonna learn a whole bunch, you're gonna make a whole bunch of mistakes, and then you're gonna maybe you'll find your niche inside of that general store. And then you can just run with that niche ideally. But totally agree. That's a super smart approach.
Have you found any connection between listing images as well as sellers that use social and like really successful sellers?
Maybe I want to understand that question a little bit more. Um, when you say social and listing images, what do you mean connecting those two?
I guess what I have found is that there are some sellers that use social to have breakout sales. Like, for example, I
Hmm.
found a shop that was making a cold brew candle that was started like 2 months ago or something. And they had an Instagram where one of the videos had like 2 million views or something
Yeah.
because people thought the cold brew candle was cool. And she showed herself making it. Whereas for the most part, though, that's like an outlier. For the most part, actually, you don't need social, and these sellers they don't have any social presence, and it's just the traffic is just coming from Etsy alone. I'm curious, like, is that when you ultimately
Verified.
when you meet the sellers, like, is that true, or is it like no, these
Yeah,
people have huge
not
accounts?
true. These people don't have socials most of the time. Most of our customers don't have socials. I do think that if you do have a social, you have a huge edge though. Like you have like if you already have a following, of course, you have an audience
Yeah.
already that trusts you, loves you, and knows you. They will buy your stuff. But the majority of people that I talk to do not have big socials. They don't have any socials because usually they're creators, not content creators like designers and artists and people that are usually kind of in our shell. We're not really out there in the public. And so we don't think audience first. And so the answer is majority of people don't have socials. People that do have socials do have an advantage though. And then typically those people would just follow that same funnel type of strategy. What I would recommend would probably be like continue to like top of funnel, grow your following, drive them to some sort of free digital product or maybe something free digital product ideally to subscribe to your email list and then push them to welcome series sequence and then through your email marketing and all this stuff. And that's typically how those people really win. But you do absolutely do not need it. I was talking to somebody today who they have they don't even do Etsy ads. They literally just they make it a goal to publish 100 great listings per month, and they have 20,000 sales in their shop. They did $100,000 last year in profit, and no social.
Yeah, and that's the best part, right? Because for me as a business owner, putting out content for social, it just feels so overwhelming, and I can just imagine
Yeah,
that everyone kind of feels the same way about it. They
yeah,
don't want to jump on the hamster wheel if they don't have to.
totally agree. I don't think you have to. I think it's if you love that, and if it's like your gift, like you're just really gifted at like making social, and it's like really comes easy for you, then 100% do it. It will amplify you, but you're not requirement.
Got it. From a trends perspective, do you see any other holiday things like, for example, even the sizes of the holidays would be helpful. Like, obviously, we know, I'm assuming, the biggest sales times are
Four.
Christmas and Halloween and that kind of quarter, Q4. But does anything else like surprise you, or you're like, oh, there's tons of activity for St. Patrick's Day or international? Like any insights you could provide would be helpful.
Yeah, totally. Q4 doubles. So like that was pretty. I know we've heard this before. People that follow trends and stuff and data and stuff, we know that Q4 doubles. But like majority of people listening to this don't follow trends a whole lot or follow the data. So Q4 will probably double. Just as far as like volume of revenue to the Etsy platform, it's probably going to double in Q4. Usually it does. And Everbee sellers, exactly the same truth. By the way, we look at all the data from our sellers and we get to like see them on a high level of how the data moves. And usually all of our successful sellers, they usually double revenue or almost that. And so take Q4 very seriously. And Q4 starts, by the way, like it's now. It was already started. We should have already been prepped for it, but it's not too late. Jump on it.
Yeah.
Um, Mother's Day and Father's Day, it might not be surprising to some, but like these things just crush. These US holidays, they are exactly what we've always thought they were. They're 30% bumps, for these holidays just in revenue. And so that's just like usually more revenue for you as long as you have those listings that own some of that real estate. Um,
What about other countries?
I don't know if I have that data in my like that would be meaningful.
It would be interesting to see because what I've seen in terms of who wants to sell, I was shocked in our Facebook group. I was sorting by city, and the second most active members are from Australia in our Facebook group. So I'm
Mm,
like, oh, there's a lot of sellers in Australia that want to sell on Etsy, but I didn't know if that translated to printable buyers. And what I typically see is that for printables specifically,
okay.
US is the dominant market for printables.
Okay.
UK, Canada, and Australia, they tend to buy, but not in the same volume than US. So sometimes our sellers, if they change the wording to like UK spelling or something, can get some sales. Or Mother's or Father's Day in some of these other countries, they continue to list for those and they'll get sales. But I don't have any concrete data. So yeah, if you want to in the future come back, you can
Yeah,
tell us
no.
if there's any more country specific things because that would be good to know. We have sellers from those countries, so should they pump out more things or should they focus on the US? That's
It's a
what
good
our
question.
question is.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see that data too. Also makes me think about, are those, for example, the Australian seller in
Mhm.
this case, are they not selling to the US today? Is that the assumption?
They are there. I think because they're in our community and we teach how to search for trends in the US. We do mention other things like I just mentioned, but I think they're selling the US. One reason it could be there are some popular people, competitors that do what I do in Australia. So it's very possible that once you kind of get in, then you're just going to take multiple courses and then you
Mm,
ultimately find us. So I'm not sure. I think maybe I'm going to reach out to them and ask
yeah.
how we can best serve them.
For
But I
example,
think they're making US products.
yeah, I would hope so at least. I would suggest that maybe. I'm just like, well, there's nothing wrong with selling to Australia and also to the US. In my experience, we have a lot of sellers that do that. Same thing for UK, like they're selling in the UK and also in the USA. Fortunately, like digital products, it doesn't matter about where the borders are, and same thing for print on demand. Like you don't have these border options or border issues anymore with these. So I would recommend doing that. You should be able to tap into both markets, and especially if it's the same type of audience. Now, the holidays is something that's what we're talking about. We're not
Mhm.
sure about those answers, but humans are humans. A lot of times we're very very similar to each other, regardless of where we're located.
Are there any surprises in terms of trends? Like obviously it doubles in Q4, but is there anything like for example in the summer you might think that it's dead, but we do see people making sales. Actually, I was looking recently, we have this thing called the 100 Sales Club where you get 100 sales on Etsy and we send you a gift and then you get our membership for free. And we had more people join 100 Sales Club in July than the
Mm,
months on either end. And I'm just kind of wondering, is it because of our launch schedule where they ended up getting in and that's just when they happened to hit it? It took them a couple
yeah.
months or whatever, or is it like July is a secret sneaky time to making sales? I'm curious what you think of the summer.
Yeah, I think the summer, I think there's this myth where people think that Etsy starts to die, like it starts to slow down during certain times, and that's not true. I don't believe that's true. It doesn't slow down. We just have speed up moments throughout the year, like spikes, but then it gets back to normal, which is not slow, by the way. There's a lot of sales, like hundreds of millions of dollars that are happening always, all the time. Like right now, it's just happened, right? And so nothing slows down. There's just spiking moments. And so I think the surprise for me is that probably that data right there, when I get to see all of our customers and how they're performing, and I get to see like the aggregate of all this data coming in, there is no downtrend. It's just like level trend and then uptrend, and then obviously goes back to normal, goes down to the normal again. But there's never like, wow, Etsy's just slowing down. Like it must be that time of year. No, it's it's just not spiking right this moment. And that was my surprising probably fact that I learned.
Yep. And I mean, every niche has its time because when I had a bachelorette shop, that summer was my time to shine. And
Mm.
December, it was nothing happening, nothing at all. Okay. So we talked a little bit about trends. Before we move on, is there anything else that you're like, hey, your audience will find this really cool, or I discovered this weird nugget last week and I just have to share it?
Yeah, I think Probably something I'm excited about. Maybe not the nugget, but it's more like something that's upcoming for if people are here are using Everbee. Something that's in our pipeline is daily trends because trends are important. Etsy is a trending platform, meaning like you could jump on trends very quickly, way before like the big retail stores jump on them. It's valuable to actually have this data and actually get a jump start on all these big companies. So it's also important for us to have like seasonality trends that we're talking about. Everbee is actually we're building we're calling it daily trends for now, but basically it's going to have the data that we already have, which is monthly revenue, which is very important for each specific listing. But now we're going to be able to see, hey, that specific listing, this Halloween shirt, how did it do last year and then last month and 5 months ago, and like specific daily trends of this specific shirt. It's going to be really meaningful, especially as you look through hundreds and millions of products. You'll be able to pick out some of these trends that were trending last year around this time, and you'll be able to jump on them again this year, make some tweaks, and then actually win in that product category. So I'm excited about that. Not exactly sure when it'll be released, but it'll definitely be in the coming months.
Okay, so let me kind of explore this use case more so people can
Okay.
understand how they would use it. So I'm thinking that I'm going to create, and we'll just use print on demand because you use that example. I'm going to create a toddler's shirt that's
Mm-hmm.
personalized with my kid's name with a pumpkin on it. And that's my vision. But I found using Everbee a bestseller or some like one that's was clearly one of the best listings in this category. So instead of, but I'm looking in July.
Okay.
So is that kind of like you're going to solve the piece here, and so they could actually go back to October to see for that particular one? Can you kind of walk me through the beginning of like how someone would even before they even got to this tool, like use that example? That would be super
That's
helpful.
okay. Cool. I'm going to try to piece that together. I haven't thought about this in real time. Um, so in this case, this specific toddler listing, we'll now understand when that product was listed. I'm sorry, like when it was created. So it was created in July, but it probably didn't get like it's a Halloween listing, right? So it didn't get traffic and didn't get any sales for like months and months and months and months, probably. And then eventually, and probably in September, it started catching traction, and all of a sudden, it started to crush it. So now you can look back. Let's say it's a year forward, and you can look back at that toddler thing and say, "Wow, that's interesting. They listed it in July. I'm going to go and list all my Halloween products in July, or maybe you don't need it in July. Maybe you do it in September." But the point is now you have that data to make that decision of when you need to be listing products, and then also what type of products to be listing. It
And
answers your question.
you'll know like back in October, even though the month isn't October right now, they crushed it.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
because sometimes like you'll look at the monthly revenue on Everbee and the revenue won't be that impressive. I'm assuming because
Yeah.
it's not in the actual month that all the action's happening.
Hmm.
But you got to get your products listed early, so you'll be able to go back and say like, oh, this is cute, but well, how did it do last year? And then you could go back to October and you could say, okay, did well, and then you'll be able to if you're deciding between like I'm going to do this type of toddler pumpkin or I'm going to do this, then that's going to be
Exactly.
yeah
And
a competitor to that one's better.
100%. And also, Everbee right now is as much as I love our tool, like it's not perfect and it needs to get better and better. And that's what obviously we're doing iterations of like needs to get more and more accurate. And this is the next level of accuracy to help sellers understand when products are selling too. Not just like in the last 30 days, oh cool, the stocking crushed it. Well, it's December. Of course the stocking crushed it, right? But when did
Mm-hmm.
it start crushing it? Was it in November? Because people buy in November too. And like we could start to really get more sophisticated. Our sellers can get more sophisticated by selling on the platform because right now Etsy sellers are kind of flying a little bit blind. And when we start to have these data that gives real time, like solid, accurate data behind it, we can start to make really thoughtful database decisions. And I'm excited about that.
That sounds great. And I don't get anyone too excited because I know from working in tech things take a while, but it sounds like this is right around the corner and it will be great. And even without it, the tool is it's very helpful. So I wouldn't discourage anyone for waiting for this. I mean, you're going to be missing out on sales if you do. So the last question I want to ask you, Cody, when I so I've been running blog posts reviewing data tools, and the number one searched query for any Etsy seller data tool is the tool accurate?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone said, is Everbee accurate? And where do you get your data from? Like, how would you answer that?
That's a great question. No data tool is accurate. just to be clear. No data tool is absolutely accurate with revenue or sales. It's just not possible. The reason why it's not possible is because Etsy doesn't share this data. And they shouldn't share this data with you, with me. They shouldn't share other people's information with each other. And so it's not supposed to be accurate. So I would recommend that somebody doesn't expect it to be accurate completely. Now, I do think based on our like machine learning, and we do some like lots of data studies and stuff like that internally, we have a lot of data. We get to kind of figure out our algorithm and not try to make it as accurate as possible, but it's never going to be 100%. If I were to just throw like a blanket number out there, I would say like we're like within around 80% range of accuracy, just because it's logical of how we have a logic based algorithm that's very smart and improved over time. But essentially, somebody could do this in a Google Sheet, in an Excel spreadsheet, and because we can do that, because we can do that, then I just like the sound reasoning behind it. For example, when we built Everbee, the very first version, the very simple approach was you simply look at a listing. I'll just look at one right now. We look at a listing. We understand first we need to understand how many total sales did it get, and all we do is look at the total reviews of that listing. This one has 67 reviews on this shirt. So then the question is, well, how many people leave reviews after they get a sale? Well, we understand that, well, we guessed at first. Now we understand deeper. But basically 15, 17% of people that purchase something actually leave a review on a listing. Okay, well, that gives us a total sales. Now, how long has this listing been available in the market? Okay, and then we just like divide that and by that total amount of months listed, and then we can kind of extrapolate an average monthly revenue. That's like our base layer algorithm. I probably just gave that away, but at the end of the day, like that's anybody should know this.
Right. Yeah. And we have to tell our sellers because they're like, no one left me a review. And it's like, okay, wait till you get to at least like 20 sales and then maybe, you'll get a review or
Yeah,
something. Like it's
plan on 17%, 20%. Sometimes you have more. Ideally, higher the better, but like that's kind of
yeah.
average.
Okay. So that makes sense. So these are the best estimations you can because Etsy does not release this data. So you're going to do that. And over time, the tool is going to get better because you're seeing more and more sellers and you have more and more of your own data and experiments to work with. So I
Totally.
think that should help put sellers' mind at ease. Like there's never going to be a tool that is accurate, and Etsy will never release it. And I can guarantee that too, because when I worked at Amazon, I realized that we would buy other people's numbers for Amazon data versus
Interesting.
releasing data that we actually had. And it blew my mind. I'm like, what? But yeah, it wasn't allowed to release like search volume and things like that, and we had to be very careful what
Yep.
was going on when I worked kind of in the ads data tools area.
Totally. And it's our
So
job to like just make sure it gets as good as possible. And we've gotten smarter. Like now we use views and we use the specific listings of the we look at review ratios of a specific shop and a specific listing too. It's gotten a lot better than just like that base layer thing. But that was like version one of Everbee. And really that should be enough data for a seller to be like, okay, this thing is in demand or it's not in demand. It doesn't need to be 100% accurate. It just needs
yeah,
to be like, is this thing trending up or is it going down? And usually after that, then you use your intuition, your creativity, and you put that stuff on top of it.
right. Yeah. And I think that's tough because sometimes sellers will look at their own shop and say, like, I know my own shop and this doesn't match or whatever. And it's like, yeah, this is, it's going to happen. But directionally, you rather have this data than not. Okay. And I know we're at the end of the podcast, but when someone says, Cody, then where are you getting this data from? You just explained that you're doing a lot of your own kind of mathematics. You have people on your team that are coming up with the algorithm changes and such. But you probably also do get some information from Etsy itself. And is Everbee an approved Etsy tool?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, we have a relationship with Etsy. We, yeah, we have a direct relationship with them. Yeah. And I think it's a good one too. It's actually gotten better as we've gotten bigger and better too. Now we can basically partner with Etsy and we actually share notes on API structures and like they ask us like our opinion on certain API changes that they make now too, which has been really cool to like build that relationship with them. Because at the end of the day, when Etsy succeeds, sellers succeed, and also everybody succeeds. Like it's a beautiful thing. So we all kind of need to help each other make each other better.
Awesome. Well, That this has been really informative. So thank you so much, Cody, for coming on today and sharing about the trends and how data works and all of that. It's so appreciated. You're welcome back at any time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. I really appreciate having on. And honestly, like, if I can give like a share some advice for anyone listening to this, like last thing is, don't expect everything to happen in a short period of time. Just like continue to go and go and go and like iterate and like you said, start general and then like just keep on going. Entrepreneurship is so hard. Digital entrepreneurship is so hard, but it's so worth it. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like if you're a mom or if you're a dad, the what you're chasing here is like a life-changing thing. And sorry to preach for a little bit. It's just I'm so passionate about this subject of you mentioned freedom earlier. That's the ultimate goal. It's like have this financial freedom, this location freedom, and this time freedom. And that's all possible through like selling digital products, selling print on demand products. Like it's so worth it. And it will be hard, but it's worth it. So anyway, just keep going if you're at all having any moment of doubt.
I'm so in agreement. And honestly, this week I had a flashback to when I had the idea for Gold City Ventures. I was in a gym in my apartment building when I lived in Seattle back in, I think it was 20, might have been 2017 or 2018. And I remember like being over this equipment, listening about, and at the time we were probably one of the first people to have a course for printables, Etsy specifically.
Cool.
And I just remember like thinking, oh, maybe I should do this. And it took me about a
Mm,
year to do it. And then I had this moment this week where I'm like, oh, I literally did that thing. And how much freedom does it give me in my life? Now I have multiple kids. I don't go to the gym anymore. So I lost that freedom, but I'm going to get that back eventually when my schedule kind of eases up here. But it's truly incredible. So thank you so much, Cody, for sharing your story. We're going to link to Everbee below. And if anyone wants to follow you personally as an entrepreneur and founder, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram. I don't post there, so you'll be disappointed probably. It's very personal, but feel free to go there. LinkedIn for sure, probably more active there just because we're hiring people and we're kind of growing the company. Um, Follow us on YouTube, Everbee YouTube. I'm on there a lot. Podcast that we have called Built Online Podcast, where we talk about like building online businesses. And so that's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube as well. And gosh, where else? That's pretty much the main things, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.